Hey guys, welcome back. The DevOps field is currently a highly sought after option in the IT industry due to its potential for high salaries and career growth. In current days, almost all companies adopting the DevOps culture and all of them are migrating their infrastructure into cloud. That's the reason there is a huge requirement of cloud and DevOps engineers in the current IT market. Today, in this video, we'll see the complete DevOps projects in less than an hour. So here is the complete project flow. If you see here, I have designed this project with the complete flow of the CI and CD, both continuous integration and continuous delivery, as well as the continuous development. So the sort of tools I have used are Jenkins, Git, Ansible, Kubernetes. These are the tools being used to do the complete continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment. Let's see all these setups I have done from the scratch. Step by step, you'll learn how a developer puts the code into the GitHub and automatically the code gets built by the Jenkins server and then delivered to the respective environment. If you have not subscribed my channel, please do subscribe now so that you'll get notified when I add more videos on my channel.
So this is the application. You can see it here. This is the login page, and if you just click on this login page and just try to log in with username and password, okay, so it will log you through the page, right? So if you give a wrong user ID and password, so it will not allow you to log in. So how it works, right? So this, when you pass this username and password, it will connect to the database in the backend. It will validate the username, password. If this is there in the database, then it will allow you to the login to the main page of the application. If a new user, then you can register by clicking this link. Okay, if you click this link, you have to register yourself. Like suppose I give Kumar, just fill this form. Okay, give the username and the password. So once you submit, it will say, see, it says like registration is successful, please log in here. Just click it here. Now go to the login page, give your username and the password. So once you log in, you'll go to the main page of the application. So this application is built in, this is actually a web application built in Java, and the database used here is MySQL. Okay, so the Java version being used is 1.8, Apache Tomcat Server 7, and MySQL database is 5.7. Okay, so um, uh, there are also various tools being used in this project. I'll show you what are those tools, right? So the tools I have used is here: Git for the local repository, the developer to store in the repository the codes in the repository, and GitHub is a remote repository. Jenkins act as a build server. Okay, then Docker to containerize the application, and then Docker Hub, it's a registry to store the binary files, that is image files. And then Kubernetes is to orchestrate our application, the containers. Okay, so this is the complete workflow. First, developer has to write and develop the project. Once the developer has finished his code, and it has to push the code to the remote repository. Once you finish the code, it has to commit the code to the local repository. After that, the developer has to push the code to the GitHub remote repository. Once the code is pushed to the GitHub remote repository, one event will be triggered automatically to the Jenkins. So here we are using webhook to trigger the event. I'll show you in the project how I have done the setups. Okay, so then Jenkins build the project whatever is being pushed by the developer. So it will pull the code from GitHub, build complete entire project. Okay, entire project it will build, and the final product like the binary files will be pushed to the Docker Hub. So here the binary file is the image file, like because here we have created few Docker files which will create the image file, and that image file after build it will be pushed to the Docker Hub registry. From Docker Hub, okay, you can see being Kubernetes. So what happens here? From Docker Hub, the Kubernetes being used to orchestrate your applications, your containers, and deploy into the staging or production environment. Okay, your development or staging or whatever you are doing, it will be deployed here. So this entire process is known as continuous integration, and this process is known as continuous deployment. So now we know what is the flow, how it looks like. Now let's start to the project, how I have built the entire project. Okay, let's go. Let me log out this. I'll show you how it's being built. Okay, let me start go through you from the development, how the developer has built the code, and after the developer has finished the code, and how the developer is pushing that code to the GitHub. Okay, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code tool to write the code. Here is the Visual Studio Code, and I have the project workspace created here. This is what you can see, my left hand side panel. Here it is, the Java project is been written here, right? And for that I have written for JSP, in the JSP few files are there, and then I have created two Docker files, one for MySQL database and another one is for Tomcat web server. If you just see this, how it looks like, the Docker file is just a very simple one. It's a very simple small project. I'm going to demonstrate to you to show you how it the flow works. Okay, and the other one is the Tomcat. Here I'm going to use the Tomcat image. Okay, now let's start the project. Okay, suppose what I'm going to do here, I'm just changing the code, and I'll show you how you, after the changing the code, how you commit the code using the git repository, the git commands in the git repository, local repository, and from there how you push to the remote GitHub repository. Okay, so here I'm just changing small thing here. The version, it's the Devops workflow, the version is 1.5. let me change it to 1.6, right? Then I'm just saving this project. This is the small changes I am going to show you, but in real project it will be a big change. The developer, there will be multiple modules, and the project will be hundreds of project files, modules, lots of changes, and the thousands lines of code will be there. Okay, so there will be multiple developers who will be working, and they'll be continuously developing and continuously pushing the code to the GitHub. Here I'm just using the small project to show you how the flow and how the developer works and push the code to the GitHub remote repository. Okay, so let's start. So I just did some changes to the code. After I do change, I just save the code, and then what I have to do using Git, I have to first locally commit the code and then push it to the GitHub. Okay, so here in the local Git repository, this is the path where I have kept the local repository, right? And you can see the code here again. This is the code written. If you use the Git status, it will show you what are the files being currently modified. This is the file what is modified. Now I'm going to commit this code first to the local, right? Git add current, only one modification, so I'm not going to give the specific any file, just one file is there, so I'm just adding into the staging area. After that I can commit it, right? Git commit -n some messages, like I can give like added new version, right? Then enter. You can see here new, add a new version, and one file is changed. After you commit, this is locally committed. Now we can push this code to the GitHub repository, right? So for that, what you have to use, git push origin then master. Once you hit enter, okay, now the code is now pushed to the GitHub repository, right? So once the code is pushed to the GitHub repository, you can log into the GitHub repository and you can also see, or what you can do, because what I have told initially, like once the code is pushed, one webhook trigger will be happen, right? I have set up the webhook trigger in the GitHub page itself, right? So let me show you. Just go to the page and my repository here. Okay, it's little slow. Code is pushed. You can see it here. This is the project. Okay, you can see the code is being written and posted here. Go to the C and see whether the updates is happened really or not, right? This is the page what we had updated, and you can see here the version 6 is updated, right? Now what we can do, we have to set up our Jenkins job. So you know Jenkins is a build and integration tool in Devops, so that being used for continuous integration, right? So for that, actually I have a Jenkins installed on my cloud machines. I'm going to show you how it looks like. So this is the Jenkins page. I hope you have some ideas about Jenkins and you would have installed this tool in your machine. Okay, so let me just log in. Okay, so now I'm landed into the Jenkins home page. So here I'm going to show you how to set up the project. Okay, for that I'm going to show you a freestyle project and freestyle job to create, right? I have created a job here, like see, this is a freestyle project, and the project name is login web app docker kubernetes project, right? So let me show you how the project job setup is done in the Jenkins. And this, you can see here there are various tabs in Jenkins tool, right? In the general tools, you can see I'm just given the description about the project and nothing here I'm going to choose. Now I have to go in general, nothing is I have to select here. Go to the source code management in the sense what repository or what source code management tool you are going to use, right? Here I'm using Git tool, right? For that you have to mention, what you have to mention, the repository URL of the project, where this repository is the GitHub repository, the remote repository URL you have to mention it. So how you'll get this URL, just log into your GitHub account and go to the respective project in the repository, and you can see here one button, clone or download, right? Just click it here. You can see one link, right? Just copy this link, just click this button, it will be copied. Okay, now go to your Jenkins page. Okay, what you can do, just paste it here, right? I just pasted it here. For that, actually this is a private repository. I have created as a private repository. For that I need credentials to log in this account and download the project, right? If you are using a public repository, no need of mentioning this credential. Jenkins will automatically download that project and build it. Okay, so hope you know how to set up the credentials and all. I'm not just going. And the branch I have specified, like the master branch I'm going to build. Which branch you are going to build? Branches to build, right? Then what you have to do, this is source code management. Then I have to go to the build triggers tab. There, here there are, you can see various options are there. You can use poll, SCM, GitHub trigger, generic webhook trigger, build periodicals. Lots of options are there, but I'm going to choose GitHub hook trigger for Git SCM polling. Right, you have to select this one. I'll show you how to set up that in GitHub account. Right, after that, what I have to do, just build environment is done, right? So build environment, nothing has to be added here. Now build, this is what our main part, what needs to be built. So I am using Maven tool. Maven tool I have not mentioned in my project, so I'm using Maven tool to build the Java projects. Okay, so this Maven tool is mostly being used to build your Java project. For that, I have set of the goals. You have to give the commands, what commands you are going to execute. I've given as clean package. Okay, and this local Maven, I hope you know how to set up the Mavens. If you are familiar with your Jenkins tool setup. Okay, then you have to select the, here whatever, here you can see the two options, right? Invoke top level Maven targets and execute cell. You can select it here, and based on that you can choose your build option, what you want to see. You can see here like invoke top level Maven targets and execute cell and the Gradle script or whatever you want. You can select it here, and based on that you can work. So what options I have used here, I have used two options. One is invoke top level Maven targets and the other one is execute cell. Right, once the build is happened, the next step is to build the Docker file. So I hope you have aware about the usage of the Docker tool, how you can use, how can build the Docker file and create your own image. Okay, so this is what the Docker file I have created two Docker files I show you in the project, right? So these are the two Docker files, Docker MySQL and Docker file MySQL and Docker file Tomcat. So this is the command. You can see docker build -t and this is the registry name, and this is the, that's it, and this is the file, right? And build, you can see here I have used one variable called as build underscore id. This is the Jenkins environment variable. It will give you the build id of this particular build. When the build will be triggered, it will give you one id. It is called as build number or build id. So it will give a tag to the image. This is the image name and this is a tag, and this you have to specify the which Docker file you are going to execute. So two Docker files going to build. After that, once the image is created out of this build, then I'm going to push this to my Docker Hub registry. Okay, so let's start it. After that, what you have to do, so there is no post build section I have added. Just save this project. Okay, so once this project is saved, you can go to the dashboard. You can go here. Either you can click this build now to build the project, okay, or you can wait the webhook trigger the project. When the developer push the code, it will be automatically webhook. So let me show you how it will be automatically work. Now we have created our Jenkins project and the job is ready. Okay, now let me do some small changes again to our code, then I'll show you how the automatic trigger of Jenkins job happens, right? Now let me change this something happy learning, and okay, let me change something here like version 7. Okay, now I just save this one again. I have what I have to do, just go to the project folder where your project is there, git status, You can see there is a modification happened to this. Then git add git commit to the local repository, version changed. You can give appropriate commit message as per your project requirement. Okay, so commit. Now the commit is done. Now I have to push it to the where? Push to the GitHub repository, right? Now git push, right, origin, then master, enter. See, it has been now pushed. Immediately if you go and check, if you see here automatic build trigger happens, right? You can see here automatic, the build number is 11, right? Now let the build finish. I'll show you how it looks like. Here the build is now success. Just click this build number is 11, click this build. I can see success. Go to the console output to see the logs, how it looks like. See, go through the logs. Success, right? That means our project, our job is completely built, means successfully built, right? Now once what was our goal? Our build option was to, once the build is success, then it pushed the image files to the Docker Hub registry, right? Now check the Docker Hub. This is my Docker Hub registry, and you can, if you don't have, you can register yourself. It's actually free. You can register yourself and create one own registry, right? Just to refresh it. It's taking some time, and it depends on your network speed, right? Hope it will be loaded soon. Yeah, it's now loaded. Now if you click on this, these are the two image file name, right? MySQL and login web app. So if you click it here, and if you can see, updated a minute ago, right? These two images updated and into the registry a minute ago. Just click it, any one of these. Okay. Now here you see the tag number 11. This is your build number in Jenkins, and here that build number is mentioned as a tag number here in the registry. So this is what the tag looks like. So here is your, and if you want to see here, just go to this tags, what tag you want to use in your project. Based on that, you can copy the Docker pull and tag option, and you can use in your project to download this image and create container of that. Okay, so that's all for this Jenkins setup and continuous integration. In the next video, I'll show you how to orchestrate this container, how to create container out of this image and orchestrate your containers and your projects, your applications, right? Thank you for watching. Hope you understood the project properly. For Docker orchestration, Docker and Kubernetes orchestration, click on the second part of this project. There is another video, part 2. You can just click and just watch how the orchestration using Kubernetes being done, right? Thank you. Hello guys, welcome back. Hope you have gone through my first video where I have explained on continuous integration. Okay, so in the first part we saw how to create job in Jenkins, build the project and generate the binary artifacts or images and store into the Docker Hub registry. Now we'll see how to containerize the application and how to orchestrate it. Okay, so let's start. So I'm in my project directory where I have kept all the required definition files for the Kubernetes. Before that, let me show you one thing. Okay, so So I'm going to show you this Kubernetes orchestration. For that, these are the objects we're going to use, like namespace, deployment, replica, config map, secret, persistent volume, and service. So hope you guys all are aware about these objects of Kubernetes. If you are not sure, then before moving to and creating any project, make sure that you have some basic ideas on this and how to create and how to write the YAML file. Okay, let's start. So let's first start with the namespace. Okay, so namespace is something whenever you're creating a project, right? If you're working multiple projects, in your company, like for HR applications, finance application, or kind of project networking application, you want to segregate those in a different workspace or different namespace. For that, we have to create a separate namespace, and all related applications or services or projects or objects we need to create into that. So it will make the application, and for managing it will be very easy, right? During the production issues or troubleshooting or managing, really it will help you to understand and go to the particular namespace and find the your applications. Okay, so let's start. I have created a definition file for namespace. Here is the definition file. Let me show you how it looks like. Okay, so it's very simple. I have created namespace, and this YAML file, actually, if you know what is YAML file, so YAML is known as yet another markup language, YAML. Okay, so the YAML file starts with 3 dashes. Okay, and then you have to add the code accordingly based on the tools or the technology you are using. So here we are using Kubernetes. For Kubernetes, we are going to add some definitions or some object into that. So here I'm going to use the API versions, that versions for this particular kind of particular object. That's the v1 kind namespace. Like that you have to write. Okay, so I'm not going to give more time on this to explaining each and every part, but I'll show you how to create all these. I hope you guys understand the objects, each object of the Kubernetes. Okay, now, okay, so how to create this namespace? Okay, there is a command. So before that, let me tell you, for that what you need, first of all, you have to install Docker and Kubernetes in your machine. If you don't have installed, just go through the internet and see how the Docker and Kubernetes can be installed. Here I have just created a small cluster using Minikube. Okay, one master and node setup I have done, and there I'm going to demonstrate the project. And I have installed kubectl, the command line tool for Kubernetes to manage, create and manage the Kubernetes orchestration, right? So let me use the kubectl. So what's the command to create the namespace? First, let me see what are the namespaces are there. Okay, so it's either kubectl get namespaces. So here you can see default, Docker, and all are these system related namespaces. By default, if you don't specify anything while creating any object, that will be created under the default namespace. I don't want to create my applications or my objects under the default. I'll show you how to create a separate namespace and add all your projects or objects into that namespace. Okay, so there is a command called kubectl create. Okay, I have to pass the -f signal here, and then just give the definition file, right? Once you give it, it will show you. See, it says the namespace is created. Now what we can do, let's see whether the namespace is created or not. So what is the command for that? That command you can use kubectl get namespace. So here the kubectl, actually you can say either kubectl or kubectl, or how you can spell, it's up to you. Okay, but mostly most of the guys, they spell it as cube control. Okay, now you can see here, see, our dev namespace is created and it's active 15 seconds ago, right? Now what we can do, our namespace is created. Now we can create the config map and secrets so that we can follow the things, namespaces, config map and secrets. So deployment we can use after creating all these items. Okay, let's start the config map. The config map for the command, same command you can use, cube control. Okay, create -f, create the config map, right? So better, let me show you what it contains actually. Okay, so vi enter. So here is the config map look like. So what it contains actually, it contains the environment variables, the global variables. It contains the environment variable of the database, what variables we are going to use while creating the container during the pod creation or container creation. So here we don't call as container in Kubernetes, we call it as pod. We are going to create pod. Okay, so the pod, what is pod actually? Pod is an object of Kubernetes. It contains one or more than containers inside it. So pod also contains the container inside. Okay, so you can see here the API version v1, the kind configure, and it holds the environment variable, as the environment variable name and the values. Right, now let me create it. Cube control create -f, then definition file name. So my config map is created. Similarly, let me create the secrets. So what is secret? In Kubernetes, secret holds your confidential informations, the data which has very critical, which you don't want to share to the outside the world. Nobody want, you don't want to share the information with anybody. You want to keep it secret. This data is very secret. So I just opened config map. Let me open the vi secrets, right? Okay, secret. So these data should be all are encrypted. So this contains the sensitive informations like your passwords, your banking informations, or whatever you feel like this should be sensitive. This should be encrypted. Okay, should not be visible to your naked eyes. So here encrypted, I have given I have used some algorithms to encrypt this value and put the encrypted value here, right? And this is how you have to write. Here you will see I have used namespace colon dev. That means whatever I'm going to use, that will be created under dev namespace. Okay, let me create it. Similarly, you have to use cube control create -f and the definition file name. It is secret. So now the secret is created. So what we'll do next, let's create the persistent volume. Okay, so our persistent volume is to be created. So what is persistent volume? I have created a persistent volume for that. Let me show you. So here, if you see here, I have created two objects and put two objects definitions in one definition file, one YAML file. One is persistent volume and the other one is persistent volume claim. So the volume, whatever you are going to create, that has to be claimed by some pod, by some other application. Because if you're the volume, whatever you are specifying, if you don't use that, then there's no usage, right? Then there's no meaning of creating the persistent volume. And here I am just going to claim here the storage. I'm giving the capacity of 2 GB, 2 gigabyte, and here I'm going to same amount of 2 gigabyte I'm going to 2 gigabyte I'm going to claim it. And here you can see the access modes rewrite, and there are lots of options which I cannot explain in one video. It's Kubernetes itself actually a little complicated, and it takes more time you to understand and go through, minimum 2 to 3 months of time if you dedicatedly give your time to learn and study yourself. Okay, hope before doing any project you should go through and learn something with Kubernetes. Let me create it. Q control create, same thing, -f, and then definition file name. So that is mysql -pb.yaml. Enter. See, here we created two files, two objects been created, volume, persistent volume and persistent volume claim, right? So now we almost created what we created. We created namespace. Let me show you. So we created namespace, we created config map, we created secret, created persistent volume. What we left? We left with deployment, replica, and service. So let's start with deployment definition file. So if you see here, I have created two deployment files. Okay, one is for Tomcat web services, another one is for MySQL DB. So Tomcat web service, that means I have created two deployments, means I am going to create two separate pods for this project. Okay, one is Tomcat web server, another one is MySQL DB, right? So let me explain one pod, and then that will be better to create. So vi, if you just open this deployment file, I have again added here two objects. One service here I have added the API version v1, and kind is service, right? And here is the service name, the node port. The service is which you can use to connect the applications from your host machine or from your laptop, from your desktop. Anyone can, the user from the outside, you can connect through this node port service to the container, to the application inside the container. Okay, so there are lots of options. Again, it will take more time if I keep explaining each and every part, so you can understand this, can go through and understand. If not, you can, I'll share my email ID, and if you need any help, you can email me. I can explain you. I'll try to explain, and I'll try to explain everything. If you want, if you are really want to learn something, then just do email me. Okay. So let's go to the, that you saw the services, right? Now we are going to create the deployment. So before starting the deployment and pod, I'm going to starting the services. Sorry, before starting the deployment, we should start the services. So I have put the service on the front. So the service will be created first, and the deployment. Okay. So if you see the deployment here, actually we given the real object definitions and the specification for the container or the pod. Okay. So if you see here, the kind is deployment, and what are the again, namespace will be always dev, because we are going to put all these objects in one namespace. So the labels and selectors being used here, so there are again labels and selectors being used, and here the templates and metadata with the information about the data, and the labels, selector and labels being used, because that's are very useful features in Kubernetes to identify the pods. And because the pod, whenever the multiple pods, a multiple container having pod, and one node having multiple pods, how they interact with each other, how the Kubernetes understand what are the pods to create and what are the pods to contact each other, right? So we can use this label and selector to identify and make these pods to talk to each other. Okay, so now so the project is here, you can see here. So just think about the specification. So this specification, I have given the containers, the container name I have given as Tomcat web, and the emails, this is where you have to be give more focus, right? This image, you remember this image was created during the continuous integration in our first part, right? In first video we had created the images out of the Docker file. So these images are stored in the Docker Hub registry, right? So where it is stored, let me show that. See, this is the Docker Hub registry, and in my registry, if you go there, okay, repository, the repository you can see here, login by web and MySQL, two images we had created, okay, in the first part of our lecture. So now we can create, well, okay, our image is ready, right? So let me create the pods out of this container, okay, out of this deployment, sorry. So now we have our deployment definition files ready, and now let's create the deployments. So for deployments we have to use, instead of create, we can use, you have to use apply, keep control apply -f and the definition file name. See, it's created two objects, one is service, another one is the deployment. So this is the service. One thing I forgot to tell you, here, if you just let me open this, there I had used replica, right? Here is the replicas. So here I have given replicas 2. What does this mean, right? In replicas, when you specify replicas in deployment, when you create the deployment, it will create two similar pods, means two identical pods of that same application. That means we'll have now two pods of Tomcat web services inside. Two pods will be running at the same time, right? So deployment is very powerful in Kubernetes because it's running in the it normally runs in the production environment to make your applications always available running. So in case of these replicas and the deployment, if you kill or terminate, or due to some problem your pod is died or terminated, right, immediately the Kubernetes will bring up another pod. Suppose you have given replicas 2, means there should always be two pods. If one pod dies, immediately another pod will be created. Within fractions of seconds it will be created, right? So all these being taken care by the Kubernetes very carefully, okay? So now our Tomcat pods created, let's create the database pods, right? Now same thing you have to use here, keep control apply -f on the file name, enter. Here also it's created. Now let's see what are the things so far we have created, right? So what is the commands? So we have to use keep control get all. You have to specify the namespace, because if you don't specify the namespace, what will happen? It will display the information from the default namespace, okay? See what we created now. These are the details we created. We created pod, you can see the pod. We created the pod, we created the service, we created the deployment, we created the replica set. Apart from this also we created persistent volume claim, config map and secret, also namespace, right? So in this, actually when you see the keep control get all, so namespaces, it displays whatever is created and can be visible to the outside. If you want to see the config map, okay, you have to use keep control get config map, okay, hyphen namespace equal to div. See the config map 30 minutes ago it's created, right? Similarly for keep control get secret hyphen namespace equal to div. See the db secret also created. Now our project has been set up, right? So I hope, yeah, I hope we have created the persistent volume, right? In the persistent volume, I think I did not show you the volume path, right? Yeah. So this persistent volume, if you open this persistent volume, I don't think it's created. Let me see. Keep control, get PV persistent volume hyphen namespace equal to div. Yeah, it's created 11 minutes ago. Let me tell you about this. Okay, so here the persistent volume kind, yeah, I have created persistent volume plate, but here is I forgot to mention this host path, right? This host path is nothing but your path or your file system or your path in your local machine or in your host where you are running this. That means this path will be mapped to your container or pods path. Whatever the informations will be written or the logs will be generated or the reports will be generated by the container or by the pod, that details will be backed up over this persistent volume. I hope you'll understand now what is this persistent. I'm not going to save it. Yeah, so I hope everything I have created now. Let's see the part. Now we see we created the pods, we created the orchestration, everything. Now it will be coming in your mind, right? How I'll see my applications, right? For that, what you need, you have to get the service and describe it first and get the information to the load balancer in Grace. With that, you can connect to the applications, connect to the pod. Let me show you that. Give control, describe, right? Service. Now, so let me go to the keep control, get services. I forgot the service name. That's why I want to see the what are the services. Namespace equal to div, right? So this is my service name, right? I want to know what is the IP and what is the host name. Through that I can connect to the application. That's my motto here, right? For that, what I have to do, first you need to know what service it is, because our front end is the Tomcat and this MySQL database is the back end. Through the front end only we can connect to the applications. So get the front end service name here, right? Use the command keep control, describe service and the service name. Obviously you have to specify the namespace equal to div, enter. See, here you can see the information about the, and here you can see the IP of the node and the machines, and here is the load balancer in this. That means the local host. Here is the applications and the node hosted in this machine. What I have to do, I need to now go to the web browser. Just open the web browser, go here, just type http. Okay, now localhost, right? What you do, you have to use the port 30,008, okay, and your application name. So this is the application name, login web app, right? Once you put enter, okay, see here the application is opened. This is the application login page. Okay, now our Tomcat web pod is running. Okay, so if you go to the pod and see, there will be two pods of Tomcat web, because of we use replicas as two pods are running, right? Now if you go to this application front login page, just give your name, just try to log in with the first initial username and password, and let's see what's happening. Okay, now this actually correct because we don't have user ID and password registered. For that, what we have to do, we have to register ourselves first, right? For new user, we can register here. Just give your name. Okay, Ranjit. It's fine. I give my name and my email ID, Ranjit, and keep the password. Submit. Boom. It's now registration completed. Right? Registration is successful. Let me log into the page. Right? Here, user ID is username is Ranjit and the password. Keep your password and login. See the version in our initial video, the part 1, during the continuous integration building process, the developer had given a version of 1.7. Same version is reflected over here. That means we pulled the latest build number. If you remember, the build number is 11. So that build number is 11 and our tag is also 11, right? So if you go here, if you can go to this buff, okay, and if you go to this tags, see the tag number is 11. So this is the latest tag. This latest tag is having the version, the code 1.7. If you want to run a newer version or a previous version of your application, or if you want to previous application, create a new part of the previous application, so what you have to do, simply you have to just go to your deployment phase, deployment definition file, where you have mentioned the image details, right? Image name. Just open it, go to the image. See, so here, if you see here, we have mentioned the login by web colon tag name, tag number is 11. Okay, so this is the 11 tag. If you want to run for the previous versions or previous tag, so you can mention the tag number here, 9, 8 or 10, whatever you want. Similarly, if your new versions comes, you have to modify it here and create the new deployment or apply it again. So there is a different rollback, roll update, recreate options are there. Okay, now we can see our applications are up and running. Right, now our complete Kubernetes project is done, starting from code development to code pushing into the code, source code management, so the remote repository, and then to the Jenkins, and Jenkins build all these. Here you can see the image, right? This is the image, I have complete image, I have given it here. Developers the code here to the GitHub or Bitbucket, whatever. Jenkins get it and build the project. The Docker file creates the binary artifacts. The artifacts could be your WAR file, YAR file, or JAR file, whatever you based on your project requirement, with the image files, and that's being stored over here. I have stored everything is in GitHub, sorry, in Docker Hub registry. From there, okay, I have used the Kubernetes, enjoyed this project starting from development to deployment. Okay, so thank you guys for watching the videos, and please do subscribe and like it. For new videos or new topics, I'll come up in near future. Whenever I get time, I'll try creating few videos on automations using various tools. Till then, bye.